Hey guys, Coach here. Hey, this particular week I want to dive into a topic that I actually covered about 3 years ago. And it was when the podcast had not even started yet and the YouTube channel was just getting up and running. And I received a comment on the YouTube channel recently. And it made me pause because I do take comments seriously, especially if they're immersed in criticism, because I want to put out the best product that I possibly can. And so I watched the video that this person clicked off of, and he or she was right. I was just doing a little too much talking. So I'm going back to revisit it now that I have a little more experience. And I certainly hope that you guys get a great lesson out of this. I really do. And if you do not, I'd like to hear from you as far as how it could be improved or how more specific it would be applicable to you if I change something. So this week I wanted to introduce those folks who are kind of new homeowners or homeowners with some experience that kind of want to expand their landscaping skill set, or even maybe emerging maintenance professionals who want to expand into installation and create a whole division for themselves. You know, many of us decide that we are going to commit to a landscape project, and then the wheels just kind of come off the bus because you really don't know where to start. Well, I'm going to start with just the basics, and I'm going to give it to you as if you were back in high school. I'm not going to talk over your head. I am going to talk to you in a way that probably reminds you of high school English, but we're not going to be talking about English. It's kind of like if someone that I'm watching on YouTube or a platform somewhere, and they're talking about a particular topic that I know nothing about, and they throw stuff at you so fast in such a short period of time that my brain just explodes. I'm not a big computer or techno type of person, and it just doesn't sink in for me. So I hope that how I present this today, that it does sink in for you, and you do walk away from it going, okay, I kind of understand. That job that we were planning on doing this October, now I know how to bring it along. So if you've ever felt that way, totally understand, been there. And then at the end, I want to introduce you to something that we've had for a while, and I just like to redirect it to you that might even help you even further. So here come the basics of where to start, what to do, what to look for, and how to seek and gain information so you get your project or projects off to the right start and finish with professional looking results. You don't end up looking like that Saturday afternoon weekend warrior. You actually looks like number one, you knew what you're doing. Number two, you had a pro come in and do it. That's my whole goal. So let's get this thing running, shall we? Thanks for being here. I really appreciate your time, and I always want you to get something useful out of it.
Hey friends, Maestro here. Please check out the description for this podcast, where you will find important links related to this video, as well as links to the website, discounts, and much more. Also, don't forget, Yard Coach now offers personalized consultations to help you get your project launched and completed, or just answer your specific landscaping questions on a personalized level. See the website at youryardcoach.com for more details. Now back to this week's episode.
So welcome back. Hey, you know, I've had been doing this landscape design and contracting thing for quite a few years. Now, I've been looking at comments on Reddit and Facebook and social media regarding landscaping and gardening and turf care and hardscape creation and all kinds of stuff. I read a lot about folks who are looking for guidance and relying on, shall we say, feedback and opinions of others to set them on a project path or to continue on the path they're going on. All this is kind of a good thing. It allows a person who maybe has one concept in their head or some trepidation to share that concept with other minds out there. Those other minds bring to bear other avenues of thought and ideas. It is kind of a public forum with public validation of their idea, or in some cases, a scorning and reprimand and correction of the direction that this person seeking information is going in. And the people do not pull any punches in some cases. You've probably read it and you've probably seen it. Well, here today, I want to give you guys a little insight on the 5 W's and an H of landscaping, the basic bare bones of how to get something off and running and eventually over the finish line with lots of confidence, plenty of knowledge, and all that goes with it. So, I know those acronyms apply to English class, 5 W's and an H. The who, what, where, when, and why, plus the H is a how. So let's launch here. The who is you, and anybody you bring in to the inner circle of your project, your immediate family, your extended family, neighbors, friends, professional consultants, maybe like myself, or professionals that you're going to have help you at one phase or stage of the project or another. The what is going to refer to what you are planning to accomplish. What goal is being set and what ideas have you considered already? The where is the location of the project. Is this the backyard, a front yard, a side yard? Is it your vacation home? Maybe it's a family member's home that is not your own. Maybe it's a business. So you can see the where kind of plays into a big part as far as logistics and other stuff. The easiest way to think about where is, I'm going to redo the front yard this fall. Okay, but maybe your vacation home is 200 miles away and you have to source out or haul stuff to the vacation home. Where I'm at up in Maine, there are vacation homes everywhere, and yet there's not a lot of sourcing. And certainly not a lot of skilled labor that you would be able to bring in at a moment's notice. The when will refer to the time of year, the time of week maybe, even down to the time of day. Maybe this is something that it's a small project and you have time to give it 4 hours every day after work. Or maybe it's a larger project and you're going to take 2 weeks of vacation and just hammer it out. Or maybe you got something that's in between and you're going to start thinking about it after watching the big game. The why refers to the purpose or reason this project is being considered. Is it to improve the outdoor livability of your property? The aesthetic value and curb appeal? Is it to improve the property value itself? Maybe you're doing it because, next spring you're throwing it on the market and you want it to really look to the nines and really have a lot more curb appeal. Maybe you're doing it to make part of the backyard maybe a little more pet friendly, or maybe a little more kid friendly. Or, like a lot of people, myself included, you're trying to lower the maintenance and lower the amount of time applicable to yard chores. And finally, the how. Although I'm geared as a DIYer for obvious reasons, I've done a lot of this over the years, there are still those of us who have no desire to accomplish projects like this. It doesn't even come into their conscious frontal lobe that they're going to go out and have the backyard re-landscaped using their wheelbarrow and their shovel. It will just never happen, and they'll be the type of people that hire professionals like me. And hey, bless their hearts, I'm glad there's a lot of them out there. But there's also a lot of folks that are probably like you, that are either 100% DIYers or you're kind of a hybrid. You know that you'll be able to do A, B, C, and D of the project, but you're going to sub out E and F because it's just easier. But for those who are, is this project going to require simple tools like simple shovels, rakes, and a pick? Or maybe some smaller power tools like a jackhammer or a sod cutter or a chainsaw? Or the project calls for larger because you're going down to scorched earth and starting all over again. So maybe some power equipment like mini or regular size skid steers, maybe a dump truck or a dump trailer, or even a front loader and a excavator, backhoe type of thing. It all depends on how big your project really is. You know, answering these simple questions that I just laid out by sitting down with a cup of coffee with your significant or whatever is over 50% of the battle that I have seen as a designer and a contractor that people struggle with because they just get mentally jumbled and especially emotionally jumbled because we're dealing with someone's home. And so enter coach, and coach kind of just smooths out the feathers and answers some critical questions and asks some critical questions that people go, I hadn't even thought about that. I can see why A and B would really work well. Yeah, that's why we called you, that kind of thing. If you can write out, literally have a question in your head, write it out on a piece of paper or put it on a document on your computer, write out the question and then find your answer and then write out the answer. By the time you're done asking your own questions and seeking your own answers, you will have frog leaped 90% of the DIYers out there. You will have answered your own questions and got very, very good professional or semi-professional answers that make sense to you. And you can see how you can go to the next phase of your project. And I know that that's kind of easy for me to say because I've been grounded in the industry for quite some time. But, people are, I shouldn't say this. People are not stupid. Someone who wants to take on a landscape project by themselves probably has a lot of gray matter between their ears. And maybe we just need to organize the gray matter as far as how to set it up and how to get it underway and then turn them loose. We all kind of started somewhere. I didn't wake up one day and suddenly I was an experienced landscape designer and contractor. I had years of training in the nursery industry and certainly in practical application, both professionally and mostly personally, where I taught myself. I used what I learned in college and in the nursery industry and applied it to my own first few homes, every home that I've ever had. And I just grew in my skill set and eventually was able to make a living at it. But all was acquired the same way that I listed above, is I applied the 5 W's and an H. Every job involved answering those 5 W's and an H in some way, shape, or form. Every single job I've ever done. Nobody should wake up on a Saturday morning and just willy-nilly pop out of bed, throw on their house slippers and say, you know what I'm doing today? I'm going to re-landscape the front yard. And then go out in the garage, grab his or her only shovel and maybe some kind of a pruning saw and walk out in the front yard and just start having at it. That's not the way. You wouldn't expect a professional to do that to you. So elevate your game as a homeowner and expect you're not going to do it either. But you know something? It happens all the time. I could probably count at least 15 jobs where I've been called in after the job went south on people to reorganize it and redo it and finish it. Because they were energetic folks, each and every one of them. Their DIY landscape project engine was poorly tuned and it just wasn't working for them. And they get frustrated and pretty soon, tools get broken and people take time off and they go golfing or they take a weekend and decompress and then pick up the phone and call coach. But oftentimes you have to have a great deal of good, honest, open communication with your significant and not be forced into a landscape project because of so-and-so's nagging. So-and-so is nagging me about what the neighbors think of our yard. So here you go, once and for all, it's going to change. And you do it kind of out of a spite thing. That's not how a good landscape project comes about. And you get halfway through it and they're going, what are you doing? and you basically say, I don't really give a damn what you think. You're not helping. All you're doing is criticizing, and you pushed me into this thing, so you're going to get what you're going to get. I have been in the house. I'll tell you a story in just a minute. But let's say you're seriously considering a fall project or maybe a spring project next year. If you just start with what I mentioned in the 5 W's and an H, you will be already light years ahead of where you were 30 minutes before. And you sat down and you started talking and you started writing down and you identified and the who's and the when's and the why's, all that kind of stuff. Now we kind of move to the communication phase. And communication is a big one, but there's other parts of this as well. Communication, budgeting, planning, sketching or drawing, sourcing, scheduling, and the all-important implementation or execution. Now, if you are a homeowner who is single, you can follow these same steps without any problem. You just don't have to consider others' ideas unless you want to. Maybe you come up with a plan and you bounce it off your BFF, or you bounce it off your girlfriend or your boyfriend or your mom or your dad or whoever. You are kind of the captain of your own ship, and you can kind of do as you please. But for many of us have a partner, a co-captain, or the captain, however you want to look at it. And some good communication will go miles and miles towards a successful outcome and project result. Believe me, if this is just your idea and your significant other is not on board, watch out. Watch out. So, congruency, and in some cases, a little compromise on both sides, is key. Here you go. I'll share that quick story with you. I had received a call from a couple in a nearby town, and they hired me to design their backyard. A husband and wife. The husband and wife were very congruent on all facets of what their wants and needs were, and all facets except for one thing on the completed design that I had done. That one thing, while I was present, resulted in a huge, right in front of me, argument. To the point where I had to leave the house and go out to my truck. And two neighbors, called the police. Now, it was remedied rather quickly. And leave it to say that kind of killed any sales pitch that I might have had to actually do some contractual work. But I heard back from them after about 2 weeks. So what was the one thing on my design that caused all this? Here you go. The color and finish of the backyard cement patio and walkways. I thought there was going to be a near divorce or some kind of domestic violence by the time I left that house. I really did. But things settled down, and we did. I got an apology, and we started drawing up contracts about 2 weeks later. We moved forward, and we did a great job. But it was just like, man, did I catch them on a bad day? Or is this how these people communicate? So, moving out of communication, we move into the planning and budgeting phase. Now, as a designer, I used to ask people all the time, I don't want you to show me all your cards. I just want you to give me a range, a safe and realistic range of a budget that you want to put towards this, so that I don't design you a $100,000 backyard and you can only afford 5. I'm not doing you any good service except giving you, pretty colors and pretty drawings on a piece of paper. Now, for most folks, when they're dealing with a professional, especially if they don't know you, they're always going to hold their cards kind of close to the vest. But for you, you can be realistic with yourself, realistic with your significant, and say, okay, well, I really like to improve the backyard, and I'd like to put $7,500 towards it. And you keep that, write it down. That is what you have looked at. You've realized that you have maybe X number of dollars in cash. You have a little home equity line of credit that you could tap into a little bit, so it's not going to cost you a huge amount of interest. Or maybe you got a small inheritance coming, or you have mom and dad that's willing to help you out. Whatever it might be, you have set yourself a budget. And if you're doing this yourself, mostly, if not all, you will be able to do it and have it look nice. It's not like you want a $30,000 landscape, but you're only going to be able to put in $7,500. And so maybe you have to dial down the lighting, or you have to dial down the size of the plants, or the size of the new patio you're going to put in. You have to whittle it down so it fits, that landscape fits into the budget, and not have that budget evaporate into a much larger landscape project that you thought would be covered with $7,500, and it's really 25 grand DIY because you totally underestimated the cost of things, because it's not your 9 to 5. It's not. You don't know how much a 5-gallon hardy hibiscus costs. Well, I do. 5-gallon hardy hibiscus at a box store is about $39 a piece. Minimum, depending on where you're at. So, the other thing that really helps to set budgets is to do a recon. And I do mean a reconnaissance. Take a whole morning and go out there and look at the price of plants. You don't have to pick individual plants at this part. That's not the purpose of going out and reconning. Go out and look at the price of plant material. Look at the price of any tools that you think you might want to buy as a result. Also, go to wherever your local rental yard is and find out, let's see, I'm going to need a sod cutter because I'm taking out that big lawn, or I'm whittling down the big lawn and I'm going to need a sod cutter. So how much does that cost for a day, or for 4 hours, or whatever time you realistically think you're going to need it? And then go to a bulk materials yard, someplace that sells gravels and composts and soils and those kinds of things, as well as maybe they have, cement products as well. Where I used to live, there was a one-stop shop. Guy had the whole town wrapped around his finger because he did everything. He had big cement trucks. He had U-Haul cement trailers that you could rent and take a yard at a time. He had all the bins filled with all kinds of goodies. He had boulders. He had everything. He really did. He was also very expensive compared to some other places. But at least you can go in there and you can ask or get a price sheet or whatever there might be. Invaluable tool to latch onto. The other thing is if you're in your budgeting part and you're going to source stuff out, you have to be able to know of all the phases your landscape is going to require, that project is going to require. Are you doing all of them? Are you doing the demo? Are you doing the soil prep, the layout? Are you putting in a concrete patio? Are you putting in a paver patio? Are you putting in a retaining wall? If not, if there's parts of this job that you're not taking on yourself, then you're going to need to pick up the phone or pick up the computer and get a hold of a couple professionals and have them come over and give you estimates for the part that you are not going to do and you want a professional to do. And I'll give you an example. For 95% of all the landscapes that I had put in, I never put in cement products except for AC pads, hot tub pads, and shed pads. That's as big as I wanted to get. And they were relatively simple. And anything bigger than that, I subbed to another contractor to come in and do that work for me. And why? Because I knew my strengths and weaknesses. Cement and I are friends, but we're not good friends. And I don't have a passion of becoming an artist with cement or concrete. And it does require a skill set that people latch into and get better and better with time. That was not my strength. And so I catered to other subcontractors who came in and did it for me. And I always was proud of that fact, and you should be as well. If you want somebody to do the irrigation portion, provided that you need irrigation, if you want somebody to do the lighting, or you want someone to build a deck for you, and then you're going to do the rest of it. If you want someone to come in and demo the whole thing, and then you've got family and friends that are skilled in various construction, and fine, let them come in and do the demo and take everything, haul everything off. Okay, so moving out of budgeting and sourcing and that thing, let's jump over to designing a little bit. And I don't want you to think that you have to be a educated landscape designer or a landscape architect in order to do this. You should understand some very, very simple principle, and the principle of scale is one of them. Scale on an engineer ruler is really simple to learn, very simple to learn. And you can take your whole backyard and put it on an 8x11 piece of paper, order up a little barrel template from Amazon, and you're good to go as far as your design. It's at this point where you should lay out kind of a blank design, unless you know specifically plants that you want to use, that you have researched. Maybe you've watched my plants of the week and you said, oh, that one that Coach had a couple weeks ago, let me see what that was. Yeah, that one. I want that. And provided that that plant works in your area, then by all means, figure out the size of it, mature size, and where it could go. Perfect. But you're not going to need a whole bunch of, you don't need a computer aided design program for your computer. There are some cheap ones out there, and the results are kind of, you get what you pay for thing. But truly, all you need is a pencil, an engineered scaled ruler, and a little landscape template, and you're good to go. You don't even have to get that fancy. You could literally sketch it out freehand, as long as the numbers of your measurements and stuff are accurate. You put on there that your patio is going to be 14 feet by 16 feet. Then when you go out and you start laying stuff out, you realize 14 by 16 might be a little too big. So you pare it down a little bit. And that's your standard DIY landscape project. When you take what you have drawn and you actually apply it to your site, realize that you have to be flexible. Realize that if you have a backyard that is 50 feet wide and 25 or 30 feet deep from your back slider to your back fence, is not the place where you want to put in 12 coastal redwood trees. You don't want to put in 8 sycamore trees or 6 northern maple trees, because what you're going to end up with is an absolute nightmare 10 to 15 years down the road with trees that are so big they're lifting your house. So we don't want to do that. So you have to, by avoiding putting in trees that you may like because they don't work for you, sketch something up and then grab yourself a cup of joe somewhere, go over to your local nursery professional, and I mean professional, and show them your sketch. Take some pictures of the site that's going to be affected and show them, hey, this is what I want to do. I want to buy the plants here, but I've gone as far as to draw up a little sketch. I want somebody to show me, hey, this is good. This could be a little different. You might want to try this. This plant doesn't work in that area, blah, blah. Okay? And you can walk away from that with gobs more information again and realize, okay, I got to adjust my plant list a little bit. Don't worry about it. Adjust it a little bit. There'll be other things that you can use and roll with it. I really think entering into something like this with a can-do mentality is a very positive thing. It is something that will get someone off and rolling. What I don't like to hear from people is where I think I can do it mentality. When you think you can do it, sometimes you overstep a skill set that actually gets somebody hurt. You take something out that you find out later, maybe I shouldn't have done that. So garner some advice. The nursery professional might help. Family and friends might be able to help. There are always landscape consultants out there that you can bounce stuff off of. I'm one of them. If you go over to the website, youryardcoach.com, I do online consultations all the time. And you can run stuff by me for an hour at a very, very reasonable cost. You really can. And what great insurance to know that you're on the right path, or you're on the right path up until here, and someone like myself says, I might suggest you make a slight left turn and then a slight right turn, and it's going to work out better for you. Boom, okay? So after all this due diligence, your recon day, your sketching, your visit at the nursery, all the stuff that you have learned, a perfect day is where you find out that your budget that you have set for this, remember the hypothetical $7,500, is going to work. You're going to be able to pull it off for that much. Bueno, very, very good. Now we're coming up on the important time of a launch date. This is not something where you really want to sit down and sketch something out on a Saturday afternoon and you do all your 5 W's and an H that Saturday morning, and you're going to rock this thing a week from today. Is it possible? Yes. Is it smart? You're really going to rush yourself. You're going to rush yourself and maybe launch a little prematurely. So think about this. Think about what time of year it is now when you're doing your planning and what time of year you want to do this thing. And how does your life, your family, your work schedule line up with time off that it's going to take? Time off from work, vacations, kids' school vacations, availability from the pros that you might be bringing in, because it's going to be a fine mesh that you're going to have to dovetail into, so that if you're doing everything except concrete, well, then you're going to have everything out of there, underground work done and everything else by the time the concrete guys show up to form everything up and get ready to pour, usually the following day. And then the all-important availability of the plants that you have selected. And here's a little pro tip for you. If you know you are going to launch on August 1st, you've been planning this since June 1st, and you're going to launch on August 1st, your demo, everything else. In June and July, you should be looking for your plant material, because you're probably going to have a lot more availability in June and July than you will in August. You don't want to tear off into this project and get up to the point of, okay, Saturday I'm going to go buy all my plants, and you go to the nursery and you go, where is everything? Where's all the plants that I saw here back in the beginning of June? Because the retail nursery industry really starts pumping the brakes in July, depending on where. Big suburban and urban areas, they'll probably keep a little bit more inventory. But if you're rural and you have mom and pop nurseries, by August, they're dialing stuff back. They're dialing stuff way back because they don't want to get stuck with it in the end of the season and have to carry it over to the following year. That's just dollars sitting there that they're not going to recoup. So allow enough time to get your plants as the project starts to unfold, and then keep them somewhere on site where they're out of the way and you can water them and care for them and dote on them and do all the things that you need to do. And then they're ready to rock and roll when you are. The other thing is when you get into one of these things, the implementation is, if you can, do it and finish it. Don't do it in long drawn out phases based on budget or whatever. just don't start it if you can't finish it. Because I can't tell you how many times I have seen people go in and hire me as a designer, and then they'll say, as we get into the kitchen table talk, well, we want to do this in phases. And I say, well, tell me what you mean by phases. Well, we want to do can we take everything out and then we'll come back, say 8 weeks from now, and then we'll maybe get the irrigation in and then come back a month after that. And I would go, I'm not the contractor for you. And good luck finding one, because phases means you don't have the funds now. And chances are you may not have the funds when you start phase 2 or phase 3. So why not have all the funds present and be ready to rock this thing from start to finish once and for all? I mean, what do you want to do? Do the landscape version of dying by 1,000 cuts? Or get in and get it done? Hurt once, sweat once, or 30 times, and you're done. And it looks good. And it's not like you tear everything down to bare dirt and then you can let it sit there for a month. Meanwhile, weeds start popping up all over the place and you're having to go out and hoe those down or pull those up. And then dogs and kids are running around in a backyard that's just dirt now instead of what used to be half-assed grass and a crappy patio. Now they're tracking in the dirt, et cetera, and phases suck. And I strongly urge you not to go down that part or that method of landscaping. But launching this thing is where dedication and commitment come into play. It will be hard. It will be hard at times, like it thinks like it's your will is just going to be broken. It's not. It's just, it could be tough physical labor. It really can. That's why they call it sweat equity, is because you will sweat. I have sweat this summer already, probably more than I ever did in the hot dries of the Central Valley of Northern California. Up here in northern Maine, we had an 87-degree day with 90% humidity. I thought I was going to collapse from the inside out. But you have to have that mentality to persevere through adversity. And the way I did it at 65 years old is I would go out and I would work early in the morning, do a huge sweat on and get my clothes all screwed up. I'd come in late morning, I'd strip down, take a shower, or come in and sit underneath the fan and cool off for maybe a half hour, 45 minutes. And I'd go out and hit it again for a few hours, come back in and repeat. And that's why we have the 3-pound t-shirt club over on Patreon, is because that's what I would have 3 or 4 3-pound t-shirts in a day when we were doing the backyard boulder triangle and the backyard patio area. It was rough. There's no two ways about it. It was hard work. And yes, I had a tractor, and yes, I had a wonderful wife that was helping, but still, she was sweating just like I was. So once you start, do not stop. If it's every Saturday and Sunday for 3 months, then so be it. If it's 2 weeks straight on a vacation, even better. And just get in, have a plan, have a punch list every single day, and you don't stop until it's done. Just keep on cranking. Choose a time of year that's based on your local environment so that you don't kill yourself either. If you have scorching high summer heats in the high 90s and hundreds, unless you absolutely have to, how's spring and fall for you? Fall, which we have coming up around the corner and probably up here in 60 days, is a much better time to landscape than in the scorching, brutal summer that I've been doing in July. I wish I could wait till fall, but I don't know what fall holds way up here in the northern climes. I could have snow in September and be SOL until next spring. So we had to get in and do it when we can get in and do it. And I don't want anybody to get hurt or become ill from heat exhaustion or heat stroke. So know your limits. For gosh sake, drink a lot of water when you're out there. I can remember drinking 1.5 gallons of water in 6 hours just to stay normal. And I'd be sweating it out all day long. Another thing I can wrap this up with is garner help wherever possible. You know, hot dogs and hamburgers with sodas and beers is a very cheap way of hiring family and friends to come over and help you and lighten your load and make that work day a lot easier, especially in demolition or trenching or planting day or something. You know, it's one thing if you're going to put the plants in the ground and you've studied up and you've watched Yard Coach and you know exactly how to do it. Well, have the other folks dig the holes for you. And then all you have to do is amend it, put a little starter fertilizer and get the plant in the ground. And all of a sudden, an 8-hour planting day just became 4 hours. So much easier and so much more enjoyable. So let's review. The 5 W's and H. The who, what, where, when, and why. And then don't forget the how. Apply that to your landscape project. Communicate. Honest, open, no insults, no screwy faces. Listen as well as talk. And make sure that there's always compromise if you're not on the same page. Plan and budget. Very, very important. Make sure the landscape project fits your budget and not the other way around. Because if you do it the other way, the budget will always explode on you. Recon and research the stuff that you're going to be wanting to get and pay for. Sketch something up. Go to the local nursery with your sketch and check stuff out. Bounce it off a nursery professional. And then make sure you get the stuff there. Source other materials. And then make sure that after you've done all this due diligence, come back to your budget momentarily and compare all the things you've learned as far as costs to your budget and make sure that they are congruent. Hey, I'd also like to offer you the step-by-step DIY landscape planning guide for you. It's a 15-step that is written out for you as well as an accompanying podcast. I chuck down the $4 that it's going to cost you, and you'll have something there forever that you can always refer back to. I think in this day and age, for $4, you can't get any better value than that. And then also on the website, I also have the 1-hour consultation or 2-hour consultation, whatever you might need. And then there's also another checklist. There's my great inexpensive ebook and the DIY course, you know, that'll teach you, my God, for the amount that it costs. If you bought in a professional, they would to design and to do things for you, you'd be spending 10 times that. So check it out if you got a chance. I would very much appreciate it. You know, knowledge is an empowering and motivating thing, and a person can do it themselves. They can maybe start off one Saturday. If you don't know a pansy from a tomato plant, you can go and get yourself a bag of potting soil, get yourself a bowl, and get yourself a 6-pack of somethings and plant them up and water them in and take care of them, and then go on to a bigger something. And then eventually, within a short period of time, provided that you haven't killed everything that you already planted, maybe you want to launch off into your, fixing up that front yard. Might look really nice for the rest of the neighborhood. So you don't want to have that house on the block, and you have all the skills and you have the resources and knowledge base that you can fall back on, either your own or maybe someone like me. So try it. See if it sticks. You don't want to take the shotgun approach to this. You want to check the box and make sure that everything is in line. So when you do it, all your ducks are in a row and the project will be enjoyable. It may be hard work, but that's okay. It really is. Hey, if you get a chance, go over to the YouTube channel. Check out this week's plan of the week and some of the other great videos that I have there that'll teach you other aspects of landscaping. I really do appreciate your time. As always, to your landscape success, I'll see you guys next week. Goodbye for now.